Like, what in average do you need daily to for people in Gaza? How many tons of food or aid you need daily in Gaza? And then also, I'm sorry if you said it at the beginning because I came 2 minutes late. What is the percentage of people who are food insecure and acutely food insecure, phases 4 and 5? And also, is it still the case that any aid that enters Gaza needs to go through the Israeli different checks and finally, sorry, too many follow-ups. But my question is, if you could walk us through what a family in Gaza that is looking for food, which hurdles they have to go through in their daily life to get one meal or to skip maybe a meal the whole day. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, so in a relatively short period of time, we were able to bring in just under 1,000 tons of interagency, so multiple organizations, assistance, utilizing the JLOTs. To put that into comparison, if you think in the month of April, just WFP, we brought around 20,000 tons of assistance just through Kerem Shalom, just in April. So JLOTs started to become something that could be significant, but as I said, it would not be a replacement for a corridor as important as Kerem Shalom, or for that matter, a replacement for a corridor as important now as the Erez or Erez West corridor. In May alone, through Erez West, we've brought in 12,000 tons of, again, interagency, both UN and NGO cargo. So, you know, they are the mainstay of the delivery. When you start to look at what you need in entirety for the whole of Gaza, when we look at food, just food assistance, we should be trying to bring in around 45,000 tons of food, free, unconditional support each month. And that's not just WFP, that's across the food sector and different organizations bringing in forms of food assistance. Now, in terms of when we have been able to do that, we had better months and we've had poorer months. This is a tough month. We've had significant reductions because, as we said, those southern corridors have not been functioning since, as they should, since the incursion on the 7th of May. When you look now at the criticality of the food situation, I mean, we don't have the latest rounds of the integrated phase classification analysis complete yet. It's due to come out in the middle of June, and that will really then tell us where we are with people who are facing catastrophic food insecurity and emergency levels of food insecurity. What we are completely cognizant of is that when you look at the communities who have been displaced yet again, we are very concerned about growing acute food insecurity amongst that cohort, amongst that population. And 1 million people being displaced yet again into a highly congested area with very significant public health concerns and water concerns and sanitation concerns. It doesn't bode well for their well-being and health. So we are really concerned about that community now. As I've said, we've seen that moderate improvement in the north. We need to continue that level of assistance, and we need to expand it across various sectors, particularly around nutrition, health, sanitation, and water supply, clean water supply, for us to really be able to sustain the improvements in the north, in Gaza City, that we've started to see in the past month. All assistance that is brought in to the Gaza Strip, whether it's from the southern corridors or the northern corridor, or indeed JLOTs, is indeed screened before it arrives, and that is still the process. There are no areas or entry points where that screening does not apply. We would like it to be faster. We would like it to improve. And most importantly, we would like the access and the humanitarian space inside the Strip, where it's far more complicated in terms of the supply chain management. We'd like that to improve as well. What are families going through? If you look at those people who have had to move in the last 2-3 weeks, everybody has to get used to a completely new situation. Where they sought refuge for a month is no longer where they will be. They're no longer staying with the same community. They may no longer be with their family members or larger family members because there's simply not the space for them to go and live in the same place. The level of aid has changed and the organizations that serve them have changed. The schedules have changed, if indeed there are schedules. It's very complicated. I've spoken to mothers and their children who have said, we just don't know how this works yet. How has it changed so much? And they are desperate and they need that form of assistance. But it's very, very difficult in such an enclosed, small area, congested as it is, with this enormous density of people. A journey that used to take us 45 minutes from our hub in Rafah to our hub in Darabella is now 2.5 hours, because you're literally driving through on a main road through an area where you drive as fast as somebody walks, because the place is so packed with people, all looking to find the form of insistence that they once knew how to find and where to access.
Thank you, Matt. Let's go first to the screen and then we'll come back to the room. Abdelhamid, you had a question? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Hollingworth. My name is Abdelhamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I have a few follow-ups and questions also with my colleagues, Sharifa and Ibtisam, about the floating pier. I want to ask why WFP was selected to be the distributor and UNRWA was not. And I want you to tell me also about the relation between UNRWA and WFP, and if UNRWA is declared, as the Israeli Knesset is planning to do, as a terrorist organization, how that will affect humanitarian work in Gaza altogether. And recently another baby died. I think he or she's 6 months old. And so can you talk about those infants who died out of hunger? And finally, as you see, there is mass killing, there is mass hunger, the mass movement, mass displacement, mass destruction of the health system, mass destruction of the educational system. Could it be called other than collective punishment and war crimes, sir? Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of how and why WFP was asked to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance from the civilian side of this particular entry point into the Gaza Strip, it's essentially based on the World Food Programme's global responsibility that was given to us through the Interagency Standing Committee, which is a rather complicated but a committee that's created of UN non-governmental organizations as well as donor member state membership. It was given to us because we were identified as one of the largest global logistics expert organizations from the humanitarian field. And we have that global experience from working in more than 80 countries and delivering significant volumes of food assistance primarily, but also other forms of aid across the various clusters and sectors that make up the ecosystem of humanitarian organizations. So we were asked, because there were organizations that wanted a humanitarian agency to take on that role. And for that, we would do similar things in other operating environments in other countries when and if asked, and indeed have done so in many other operations around the world. Our relationship as the World Food Programme with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees is a strong one and an old one. The World Food Programme has worked in coordination and sometimes in support of UNRWA in Gaza and in surrounding countries and in the West Bank for many, many years. And we continue to do so. We coordinate very closely with them in this crisis. And indeed, we provide support logistically when they need our support. And frankly, they also support us as they support all other parts of the humanitarian, ecosystem inside Gaza, utilizing their warehousing capacity when required, supporting people who are sheltering in their facilities, schools, clinics, hospitals, wherever people have sought refuge, and their support then as UNRWA to facilitate multiple organizations to meet the needs of Palestinians that need some form of support. So we have a very close relationship, working relationship, as does the entirety of the ecosystem, and we will continue to support that. I may ask Shireen to comment, because I think the Secretary General has been very, very clear and has provided the leadership and direction for the entire United Nations on what is our direction when it comes to the support we give to UNRWA so that they can alleviate the vulnerabilities and the needs that Palestinians face across Gaza, and we have not wavered from that. So we continue to support and work with them very closely, and I think that has not changed. In terms of whatever political views on the environment and how this war is seen, again, I'll ask Shireen, perhaps the deputy spokesperson, to respond to that particular question. In terms of children and the impact of hunger and malnutrition on children, it is the hardest part of what we see inside Gaza, and indeed we are fully aware of the one case recently that was publicized, but we're also aware of many stories of many more cases that aren't always publicized, that are very private. And it's one of the hardest things to see is the cumulative impact of a war that has seen such a speedy deterioration in particular children's lives and the most vulnerable in terms of people with pre-existing ailments, etc., old people, because it's not only about there being insufficient food supply, it's about having insufficient access to clean water. It's about sanitation being as poor as it is. It's about people's living environments, staying in cold and damp or hot and humid tents with flies and mosquitoes and refuse and public health issues abundant. And it is unfortunately something we will see more of unless these key issues can be resolved, and those key issues will only really be resolvable when the ceasefire that we are asking for comes about.
Thank you, Matt. And we're here indeed to listen to you. We have some limited time. Let's take another question from Lee Keith, AP. Are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Please go ahead.
Keith. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hollingworth, for this briefing. I wanted to go back to the question of coordination, especially at Karam Shalom, the Karam Abu Salam. The COGAT sort of, as you've said, and as the UN has been saying for the past 3 weeks, they just haven't been able to reach the crossing to bring out trucks, as far as we understand, to retrieve the trucks that are coming in. The Israelis keep saying, we're sending trucks in. And, you know, all it did yesterday at a briefing, COGAT basically answers was all they have to do is coordinate with us. I'm just wondering if you can give us a sort of closer detailed picture of what is the issue of reaching that crossing? What are the issues in coordination there? Why are commercial trucks able to get through that crossing and into Gaza while the UN has not been able to? And in connection to that, if I can also ask about the commercial trucks, you mentioned prioritization of commercial trucks. Has the prioritization of commercial trucks impacted the number of UN trucks that are able to get in?
Okay. Thanks, Lee. So, I mean, again, Kerem Shalom has been open to us, at least the World Food Programme. We've started to be able to have access to bring in trucks to load since the 20th. However, obviously, accessing Kerem Shalom, Kerem Abu Salim means going through what was the former Rafah crossing and the cargo consolidation hub there. To get to the cargo consolidation hub and the former Rafah crossing, you have to go into an area that was ordered to be evacuated early on in this incursion. That area was forcibly evacuated because it was a war zone and people were fighting and there were tanks rolling in and infantry troops going in. And that still continues, and that situation has not stopped. It may have changed militarily, but in terms of violence, it's still a violent area. To do that, to get in to those areas, the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations need to coordinate every movement. Coordination is the most vigorous form of what is the rather cumbersome but necessary process to get safe access. So that when we send trucks and people in to escort those trucks, they're not going to come under fire. They're not going to be mistaken for a belligerent. They're not going to endanger themselves in trying to lift humanitarian assistance. It takes time. It's not easy. And when you've got commercial cargo also coming in, and therefore Gazan commercial trucks being told, you'll make some money if you get there early, and you'll make some money if you can come to lift cargo, they don't follow a notification process. They don't follow a coordination process. They arrive as early as they can and into what is an extremely, again, congested, you'll always hear this term in Gaza because there's so many people in so little space, an extremely congested route, and it's the only route to get to the Rafah crossing, to get to Kerem Abu Salim, Kerem Shalom, across the Philadelphia corridor. And the Philadelphia corridor is also a very dangerous place. But if you have 200 trucks, empty trucks parked there, to get your aid trucks past them is almost, if not completely, impossible. And you have to wait until those trucks have moved on, moved forward and gone in before you can get in. That's the issue of the prioritization. The aid has not necessarily been able to come out in sufficient numbers because it's difficult where we're working. The process is difficult to follow, albeit necessary. But our ability to access is extraordinarily difficult in this current scenario. It's not because we don't have enough trucks. It's not because we don't know how to do it. And it's not because we can't get the commodities to warehouses and ultimately then distribute. We have partners that can do it. But this area of work has been very complicated since the incursion started. I'm hopeful that we can improve this, and whether it's based on daily scheduling or hours of the day which are dedicated to one form or another. We don't want to see the commercial cargo stop. That's not the point. We need to have the appropriate mixture of free, unconditional humanitarian assistance coming in, as well as the appropriate forms of commercially available goods, including fresh food, for example, vegetables, that people should be able to find, and we want them to be able to find. But it needs to be a better managed system than it's been so far.
Thank you, Matt. One last question. We'll go to the screen again with Alice from AFP. Please go ahead.
Hi. Sorry. Thanks very much for this. I'm just. You answered my first question, so I just have a short one at the end. Netanyahu said yesterday, told French television that civilians in Gaza were getting 3,200 calories a day, which was, he said, significantly more than the base level. I just wondered what you would make of that assertion.
Look, I haven't seen anybody, aid workers alike, who live off protein bars, eat 3,000 calories or more in Gaza. So I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm assuming it comes probably from a calculation of the number of goods going in and times the calories divided by the people, which unfortunately doesn't take into consideration both the food, the accessibility and the availability issues, whether that food actually gets to the people that really need it, whether people that really need it can even afford it. That's a question. We know on the aid side, not enough free, unconditional forms of assistance are going in. That's why that ratio has to change. And we also know that other things need to change too. We need to have more fuel going in, so all of the basic services that are needed, the hospitals can run, the generators run, there's electricity, there's communications, so on and so forth. That needs to change. And then we can start to look at whether or not people are getting the calories they need. But we will see the analysis and the data that will come out in 2 or 3 weeks' time when the integrated phase classification is finalized, and what is an extraordinarily robust and international form of peer review is complete, to see what is the current level with all of the environmental changes that have happened, some for the better, some for the much worse over the past few months.
Matt, I know you're in a hurry and you need to go, but do you have patience for one more question? Okay, sure. Kristen, Al Jazeera.
Sure.
Thank you. Kristen from Al Jazeera. I also wanted to ask, there's also accusations of Hamas looting and hoarding supplies. Do you have any experience with that?
I think it's certainly no secret, and we try to be extraordinarily transparent on the issues we've faced when it comes to law and order and criminality in this environment. Without question, partially driven by desperation, because the situation is so desperate. Some people have resorted to stealing humanitarian assistance, and that does happen. We've also seen some criminal gangs expand their territory and their control in areas because law and order is failing, as there is a vacuum in what was the de facto's administration of the Strip. We have not seen Hamas or the de facto authority taking assistance from the World Food Programme or other UN organizations. What we have seen, though, is that criminality in areas, but we are working extraordinarily hard to engage with communities to help us prevent it, to also look at changing our routes, changing our schedules, changing our delivery timings for distributions, and to manage the distributions differently themselves to mitigate that. But it is an extraordinarily difficult working environment for humanitarians today. But as I said, at this juncture, we've not faced that ourselves with our cargo, with our humanitarian assistance. That's not to say it hasn't happened, but we are very, very careful, ensuring that when something does go wrong, we make it clear and public, because we want to ensure that there is trust, and that would include if anything was taken for any other reason but hunger or perhaps criminality.
Thank you so much, Matt Hollingworth, briefing us from Jerusalem. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.